If you live in an HOA, this is something you want to listen to right now. There are some bills on the state floor that could affect your home ownership. This is Behind the Investigation with Atlanta News First Investigates. I'm Sierra Cummings. I've got investigative reporter Anastasia Olmos here. How you doing, Anastasia?
I'm kind of tired. There are a lot of HOA bills that have been proposed. I'm trying to keep up.
Yeah, it's kind of like whiplash. It's like, what's happening in this chamber? Is something going to cross over?
Right.
There's a lot to tackle. So first, let's just jump in. We know over the past year, you have been digging into homeowners associations. We've joked about it so much that we get emails. Most of our emails to our investigative team at this point in the Better Call Harry line, it's, can you help me with my HOA? You've done so many topics. It feels like I learned something new every single time, but just give us some depth and breadth here. What are those big issues you've covered in HOAs over the last year?
You're right. We were hearing from so many people that I started a folder. I couldn't keep up with the folder in my email, so I created a survey, and I just started sending the survey out. Here, I can track you here. Give me your contact information. Give me the name of your HOA. Give me your issues, and then you can email me documents. And we've got more than 200 homeowners. Honestly, we're probably near 250 if we're including people that have emailed in from out of state with their HOA issues. But really, overall, the issue is they have nowhere to go. That's why they're coming to us. The system, the way it's set up right now, if they have an issue with their HOA, they can go to court. And they can pay for whatever fees are in the court, and then also a lawyer to represent them, to help them fight. And the HOA will have their lawyer funded by the HOA's money. So basically, the homeowner feels that they're paying twice. That is one of the main issues. The second one is the word that you've heard often in this HOA Nightmare series, foreclosure. We don't see it often, but a lot of people that reach out to me are fighting this foreclosure filing that their HOA has threatened. It's usually the lawyer of the HOA that is kind of filing these documents. First, the lien, whether that may be $100, $1,000. Once that lien hits $2,000, that is when, legally in the state of Georgia, the HOA can file to foreclose on a home. Now, all of this is an enforcement power. So it allows HOAs the ability to say, hey, if you're not paying your part of the dues in this community, you shouldn't live here. But should people be losing their home due to an HOA who really has no oversight or regulation? They do not answer to any office in the state of Georgia. And that was something I found early on when I started reaching out to the Secretary of State. I was like, hey, they have to file their HOA with you guys, so what rules do they have to follow? Oh, we don't oversee that. And, do you guys take complaints? Does the city, does the county? Nobody. So, like I said, the only place they have to go is court. And so we found people emailing in, they owe an average fine amount of about $10,000.
Wow.
Many of them in lawsuits, many of them with liens and fighting foreclosures. This isn't everybody, but it's a lot of people. So many that state lawmakers are now trying to pass legislation to really rein in kind of the power of the HOAs that are abusing it. Not all HOAs are doing it wrong. We've been in communities that are absolutely beautiful, pool houses and pool clubs and all sorts of things. That's what an HOA is for, to keep the community nice. But there are some people taking advantage.
Yeah, at the crux of this, it's, hey, I think I'm buying my home and I'm in charge of my home, but really you have another association that's telling you what you can and can't do. Some of it seems reasonable, and then there are many other cases we've covered where it seems unreasonable. So let's keep it even simple for the people that are not in an HOA community. I'm not in an HOA community, and so there's a lot that I mentioned that I kind of heard for the first time from you in your reporting. I think often when we're thinking about HOAs, we're like, oh yeah, we know what that is, because if you're in this community, they may say, hey, you can't paint your house gray, you can't paint it yellow,
Correct.
you've got to stick to this color scheme, you've got to have your grass this high, you can't park here. Those seem like some of the overt issues that an HOA would manage, but this goes even deeper. We learned something about garnishment here. That was one of the most shocking stories that you've done in this past year. I'm like, wait, I didn't even think that the HOA could go that deep, like into your actual bank account.
Yes, that was a shocking find that we stumbled across by going through some court documents, was seeing HOAs garnishing wages from like school district employees or going into bank accounts and taking what's owed to them. Now that's some enforcement powers that are found in something called the covenants. So there are two different things that homeowners need to know. You have your bylaws, which is what the HOA has to follow, and then you have your covenants, which is what homeowners have to follow. So whatever rules are in those documents for every community, it's different. And so whatever that says is what you have to follow. If it says that your shutters need to be painted a certain shade of white, they have to be painted that. If it says that your trash can cannot be out between X hours and X hours, you have to follow that. Those are the rules you are signing on when you buy your house in your community. And even if you say that you did not know there was an HOA, it is your responsibility to look it up in real estate records. That is the current law here in Georgia. And there are some laws proposed that say, you know, you have to disclose that there's an HOA in the community. There are so many kind of loopholes right now with what the laws are. For instance, there is the POA, the Property Owners Association Act, that lawmakers did pass several years ago. But it's an opt-in act. It is not universal law for all HOAs. So if you are not a POA, then you don't have these rules. So that's the overarching issue here lawmakers are bringing forward. You know, you mentioned garnishments. You know, that story was one of our, you know, most popular stories, was a cancer patient who was getting chemotherapy, and the HOA cleaned out her bank account because she was past due. She's in the hospital, and when she tried to contact the lawyer, the message never really got to him, and she couldn't talk to the HOA because they were operating through a management company that cut her off when she owed, so she couldn't go to them. And it becomes this issue in communities where you don't necessarily know if people are being malicious, you know, are the HOA board members really, you know, trying to, you know, collect money, or are they just not really aware of what they should be doing? And so a lot of legislation does address these issues.
Representative Davis, Scott, and myself have worked on this for over 6 years, and along with Senator Donzella James, who's had hearings. But the problem is not just limited to 4 legislators. It is about time that other legislators, whether you're Republican or Democrat, this is a people issue.
Your one priority for getting a change to HOA law in Georgia, what would that be?
The main change that I'd like to see is to stop the liens from being able to foreclose on people's properties. I think it's a travesty to just say, once you get to $2,000 worth of liens, they can sell your house on the courthouse steps without even informing you.
So we know crossover day is a big deal, and at the time we're recording this, we're just about halfway through the afternoon. But what bills, Saucy, do we know will survive it?
So we do know that at least 3 HOA, POA bills have survived. 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. So we'll kind of run through those. HB 1035, that's the Georgia Homeownership Protection Act, and that actually applies to a lot of things. It stops the ability of foreclosures for unpaid utilities, non-tax bills, and HOA fees. So that's where the HOA falls in there. You can only have a foreclosure filing for unpaid property taxes and mortgage defaults, so things that are directly to your home property ownership. So that has survived. It has passed the Senate and will go to the House for a final vote there. HB 664, it applies to the POA, as I was mentioning earlier. So it really isn't a universal law, but it basically says you can become a POA with an 80% vote. That did pass the House. And then the main one, which honestly everyone seems to be talking about, it's one of the more comprehensive bills. It's SB 406. So we heard from Senator Donzella James there. She's been working on it for years. She got Senator Matt Brass to help her and pick up this bill. Originally it was 461, they rewrote it, and now it's 406. This is the one that passed unanimously this week, which was honestly shocking for me and shocking for Matt Brass. Let's take a listen to what he has to say, and then I'll explain what's in the bill. That amount of votes, were you expecting that?
I was not expecting unanimous. I thought we'd have a few dissenting, but we did not. So it was, I mean, it's like any bill. You kind of lay out your guardrails, if you will, and then you figure out how far you can stretch it, and then you work between it and figure out a solution that accomplishes what you want it to accomplish, but still something that can pass, because the bottom line is you got to have the votes to make it a law.
What happens next?
Goes to the House, and we go through the same process again. And so, you know, the hard part's going to be fighting off the amendments that I would probably normally support, but that I think ultimately could cause too much opposition to actually pass the bill. So we'll try to fight some of those off, just like we did on the floor today. There was one amendment that I understood where they were coming from. I understood exactly what they were trying to do, but at the end of the day, I think that could hurt us as it crossed over to the House. So we'll kind of go through the same process over there and get it through committee, get it through Rules Committee, get it to the floor, get it for a vote, and get the governor to sign it. That's the goal.
Okay, so you heard him there. He has worked so hard on just trying to make sure that the bill is going to get support, because there are things that would get a lot of pushback. So, in basic, what this bill would do would require HOAs to register with the Secretary of State's office for a $100 annual registration fee. That money would then fund an office with a 5-state review board to take complaints to investigate. Then the HOA would have to not only keep 10 years of financial records, but they would have to provide the last year to that state office. That is one of the issues we're running into with people who say, I don't know where my dues are going. I'm getting charged this assessment, and we don't have anything in our community that shows that we need that money, and we want to see the financials. You have the right to see them, but there's no law that forces an HOA to provide them. And so this office would kind of be the mediator there. They also have enforcement power. They can take somebody off an HOA board if they find that they are not doing what they need to be doing. And when it comes to foreclosures, a major difference here is that it raises that threshold from $2,000 to $4,000 in unpaid dues. So it can't be fines and fees. You know, you were fined. I've seen a $700 fine for shutters faded. So that would not count towards this possibility of foreclosing on a home. It would only be you not paying your dues and participating in the community. And then the caveat to that would be if you have not paid anything in 12 months, they can, if you've got about a $2,000 limit there, then they can foreclose. So they're really just trying to make sure that people are participating and that HOAs are not taking advantage of homeowners. If they decide that their HOA is, you know, operating nicely and nobody has a problem with it, they don't have to register. But in that case, they cannot issue fines, they cannot put liens on homes, and they cannot file to foreclose. So there's an option there in this bill. And so we did see an amendment proposed on Wednesday where they were trying to raise the threshold to a $10,000 foreclosure. That got shot down. And what Brass said is that even if he does support that a $10,000 threshold for a foreclosure, he believes that if it does go on to the House in that way, the lobbyists are going to step in and they're going to start fighting the bill. So he's trying to keep it as reasonable as possible so that all parties will support something to get some sort of oversight of HOAs in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, and just a little inside baseball here, like the more amendments you have in a piece of legislation, the less likely is to just have that simple through line, okay, here we're going to go to the floor for a vote, and now it can potentially go to the governor's desk to be signed. It just slows everything down, and as we mentioned, there are important deadlines, and we know the legislative session ends here in a couple weeks. You know, this is a topic that people have wanted to see change on for many, many years. So I want to give you some credit here. You have really stuck to this reporting and highlighted stories that maybe would have otherwise gone unnoticed. Because sometimes, and I've even been guilty of it, sometimes when you hear like HOA complaints, you're like, well, you went to a community with HOA, so what do you expect? But you've raised so many questions about what oversight exists and should oversight exist. And so this is really important. It seems like those lawmakers have highlighted your reporting and how it affects this potential legislation.
Really tell you the truth, your series on this issue has put a lot of heat in this house. And it is one of the main reasons we've been able to get some traction to move legislation.
This is one of the things, as your reporting has shown, that so many people are concerned about, especially in my Senate district and in the metro area and across the state.
More legislators are aware of it, thanks to your stories.
I've even been CC'd on emails where they'll send our stories to lawmakers and they'll say, hey, we support this. We want this change. You've been in our community. You know what this is like. And I've seen lawmakers respond. That's been the coolest part is everyone seems to be listening. And to see that bill in the Senate pass unanimously, as I mentioned, I was shocked. Brass was shocked because everybody seems to realize that something needs to be done. And HOAs, they do need some sort of enforcement power, but where that line lies is really what lawmakers are going to have to figure out here in the next year. You know, they say that our reporting has called a lot of attention to it, but at the end of the day, they are the ones that are going to make the changes.
Maybe you're listening or watching for the very first time and this has really kept your attention. You want to figure out where you can find the rest of Stassi's reporting. Stassi, where can they go?
We put a whole page together for this. If you go to our website, atlantanewsfirst.com, there's a tab, Investigates tab, and then HOA Nightmares is another tab on that page, which you will click, and then you'll be able to see all of our stories. We've been in communities across North Georgia covering several different issues. I've got some stats on there, and I also have a form where you can reach out to us. Now, it honestly has become heartbreaking. I haven't been able to keep up and I can't get to every community. But if you were able to help us aggregate data and just see how big this problem really is, you are contributing to our reporting and making a difference.
Such meaningful work. Thanks so much, Anastasia.